how did you even think about, or what was the inspiration to pile all of this data into Beyond Performance 2.0? At what point did you say, I'm going to write a book and compile it and present this to various organizations?
Well, it's a really good story. I was not an author on the first book, and I was asked to be. Because
that would be the 1.0?
1.0,
Okay.
right? So that was another colleague, and Scott. And I had been asked to be by the person who ran the practice, and I was like, no, I'm too busy getting elected.
Well, excuse us.
Right, exactly. You could argue that was a bit of a miss on my part. But the IP, the thinking, was a small group of us, including me quite a bit, of our thinking. So we were certainly very proud of it, right? But the biggest push was, could we take what we had in the way of the data and start saying, hey, we don't believe this anymore, we actually know it, across industries, across regions. I mean, we used to hear things like, well, in Asia, it's entirely too authoritarian, this won't work. No, actually. There are pockets of things around open and trusting environments, around what it takes to get people to provide feedback upward. But it's not that they don't want to be trusted. It's not that they don't want to communicate. There's a nuance to it. So we don't have to hand wave on this stuff. We actually know it and then can bring it to bear. That was the mission behind it. And by the time we'd gotten to the writing of the first book, which was in a little over 10 years ago, the big insight was this idea for managing for performance and health, because we'd come out of the dot-com bust and basically 5 long years of cost-cutting and restructuring and downsizing. And we saw a lot of organizations basically do the fad diet. They lost the weight, and they always gained it back. They didn't really change anything. An interesting, I promise, a 45-second personal anecdote. I wrestled from kindergarten through college, and in college wrestled Division I before I actually went to Moravian. And so at this size, I would wrestle 177 pounds.
Oh, like physically wrestle, not like you mentally wrestling with an idea.
I mean like collegiate wrestling, right?
Okay.
Yeah, freestyle and schoolboy.
Okay.
Significantly smaller than I am now at this height. But I always had this thing of, if I was within 12 pounds of my weight, 3 days before the match, I was okay, because I could dehydrate myself, lose all the weight, and I would make weight. And that was okay if I was wrestling someone who wasn't as good as I was. But if I ran into someone who was as good as I was, but always managed their weight within 3 pounds and never let it get out of hand, they always beat me. I'd run out of gas and they'd beat me. Now what's the parallel to that? In that cost-cutting environment, companies that changed their behavior and changed their culture to really understand they had to run it differently, that it wasn't something they endured, it was their new normal and they adopted it, they always succeeded.
Is that how you would summarize the book in a sentence, is about looking at how to change internally? I
think the summary is a two-parter. You are more successful when you run the place better.
Okay.
Changing the place to run it better is hard, but it is knowable and there's a proven formula. And when you follow that formula,
it works.
It works.